We're going to start with a slip knot. Now, some people find this easier to do in their hands and some people find it easier to do on a flat surface, so I'm going to show you both. I'll try on the flat surface first. The easiest way to start is to make a loop near the end, but not right at the end of your yarn. So you've got the tail here and I've made a loop. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the end of the yarn that's still connected to the ball through my loop. So it's like a normal knot that you'd start to tie, but we do not want the tail to be dragged through the loop. So you need to try and hold that end so it doesn't come through. And that is a slip. The other way to do this is just to make a loop in your hands, and then it's exactly the same principle. So I'm going to pull through the end that's still attached to the ball of wool, and I'm going to pull that loop through and pull tight. And again, that is the slip knot. We just want to make sure that your tail end doesn't get pulled through the loop. So this should just pull undone. Okay. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to make a loop and I'm going to pull through the end that's still connected to the ball. And I'm just going to pull on all the ends until it tightens. And that is a slip knot. Once we've got our slip knot, we're going to put our hook through the loop that we made and very gently pull on both ends until it tightens. Now we want it tighter than it is, but not totally tight. There should still be some room in there. Can you see that? So it's not totally tight, there is still some space, so it really freely moves around my hook. Okay, so it's tighter than it was and it's pretty snug around the hook, but not closed all the way. The tighter this is, the more difficult your life is going to be when you try and make your first stitch. Now the first stitch in crochet that we're going to do is a chain. I will just mention the fact that by far the hardest thing to do at this stage is learning how to hold your hook and hold your yarn, because we want the yarn to flow through our fingers enough that we can pull it through and use the yarn to make the stitches, but tight enough that it puts some tension so that our crochet is not too loose and saggy. It's really difficult to find a balance, so the only way you're going to learn this and learn the way that you as an individual like to do it is by practicing. This can be really fiddly and can take you quite a long time to really find, to really get into a rhythm. So all I encourage you to do is keep practicing this. Now the way I tension my yarn, we can forget about this little end here that's cut now, the one that's not connected to anything. We want the one that's connected to our yarn because that's obviously what we're going to be using to crochet with. So we can ignore the little wispy one and we're going to use the one that's connected to the ball. The way that I tension my yarn is that I wrap my yarn over my little finger and then under my other two fingers but over my forefinger. So that's how I tension my yarn. This is how I hold my crochet always. Now you'll notice that that's using my index finger. What I'm going to do is use my thumb and my middle finger to secure that knot where I can. So I can still move my hook freely, but my thumb and middle finger are holding on to the hook that we made when we did to the knot, sorry. My thumb and middle finger are holding on to the knot we made. Now to make a chain, all we need to do is we need to move our hook to grab our yarn, and this is called a yarn over. Now the yarn always needs to come from behind your hook, from the back to the front. Okay, so we push our hook away from us and the yarn comes from the back over to the front of our hook, and I'm going to pull my yarn through the loop that we had. And that's why it's important that the hook can fit through the loop really easily, because if that loop on your knot is really tight, it's very difficult to pull anything through. And again, at this stage, if I flex my pointer finger, you can see that I can pull that yarn through, and I can make my loop really tight or really loose. So we want to find that balance between having enough room that I can pull my hook back through it, but it not being huge. We're going to do the same thing again. So we're going to bring our yarn up and over from behind to the front. So we've done a yarn over our hook, and we're going to hook it and pull the yarn through the loop that was already there. Okay, so we just need to keep practicing this. So we're going to yarn over, so wrap our yarn around our hook and pull it through the loop that we made. And the looser you can do this at the beginning, the better. I have now moved my thumb and middle finger up a little bit, so I've got a really secure hold of what I'm making, because the further away your work gets from your hand, the less control you've got. So wrap your yarn over from the back to the front. So your yarn comes from behind and up and over towards you, and pull it through the loop. Now as an example, I'm going to pull this with my index finger here. I'm going to pull it tight. So this loop is now really tight. And when I go to pull this through, you can see that it's really, in fact, I'm probably not going to get it through. It's really difficult to pull through. So that's why it's important just to slacken off a little bit and make sure you've got a little bit of space in this loop before you try and pull anything through. And that will come as you start to relax into it a little bit. So I encourage you to practice this process. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull it through that loop.